A very good morning, everybody. I welcome you to the third, or for some, the fourth day of this 8th UNESCO Most Winter School. I'm very glad that so many of us are here this morning. Today, the topic of the day is very much related to technology itself, and it has this underlying theme of how we can or we cannot engineer ourselves out of our issues, out of our problems, how modernization can be put to the benefit of humankind, and how transformative technology, sustainable development, and digital peace building can be something of a reality instead of just nice expressions. So the first panel of this morning will be running from 10 till 12, and the panelists will address the issue of transformative technology, sustainable development, and digital peace building. And the chair of the panel will be Ivana Stepanović, our esteemed colleague. And the panel will run till noon, until lunchtime. Let me give you a little bit of housekeeping. The lunchtime will be till 1:30. And then from 1:30 onwards, we will see you back here again for the human security panel. And that's going to be chaired by Balázs Barta, who is sitting on the panel here. And it's going to be a long day, so please brace yourselves, but it's going to be a very interesting one. And as a first honorable task, I would like to announce this morning's keynote speaker, Professor Tshilidzi Marwala, who is the rector of the United Nations University and a undersecretary of the United Nations. So please welcome Professor Marwala.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given a difficult task of giving a keynote on the role of artificial intelligence in peace building. And I think this is a very important issue because artificial intelligence is actually a field that offers both a great deal of opportunities, but has, with it also comes a great deal of risks. And I'm reminded of a famous book that was written by Charles Dickens so many years ago when he was trying to characterize the French Revolution. Even though every time I quote this book, my French friends don't like it. They say, there is no way Charles Dickens can write about two cities if he was only living in one. Of course, we know Charles Dickens was living in London, and he was writing about life in Paris during the French Revolution. But it starts by, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, and it was the winter of despair. So, the question that we need to answer is, given these two paths that lay firmly ahead of us, what do we need to do in order for us to be able to choose the path where AI is going to offer us a great deal of opportunities and we are protected from the risks that comes with it. I have been working on AI for, I don't want to reveal my age, but it was when I started a PhD at Cambridge, it was 1997. So it has been quite a while. And I actually got into AI almost by accident. When I arrived to do a PhD, I did not quite know what I was going to do a PhD on. And I sat next to somebody who is now a director of AI research at Microsoft, Nando De Freitas. And I asked him, so Nando, what are you doing a PhD on? And he said artificial intelligence. And it just sounded like a very cool subject. That is how I actually ended up in it, you know. So it was as much accidental as it is something that I deliberately chose. But as I have already indicated, the person who really inspired me to get into AI was my grandmother. My grandmother used to make clay pots, and she will go to the river to look for clay. Of course, later on when I was an engineering student, it's called material selection. And there are quite AI-empowered software that can be able to help engineers select the best material. My grandmother had nothing of that. She was just using organic intellectualism to select the pot. And she'll come back and she will make these pots. Now, if we ask engineering students to do that, they want a computer-aided design software to be able to design something that is secular, but it is open. That can't be too thick, but can't be too thin. That's what we call optimization. And then after she has formed the pot, she will put it in the sun. It will not be strong enough. She will put it, after it has dried, then she will put it in the furnace and burn it. At the end of the process, she will knock each pot. And then, if it rings for a long time, she will say it is a good pot. If it rings for a short time, she will say it's a bad pot. When I was an engineering student, I took a class on mechanics, and they teach you about a concept. We have astrophysicists here. They will understand the concept very, very well. The concept of damping. When it rings for a long time, it's a lightly damped structure. And its damping coefficient will reflect that. If it rings for a short time, it means there must be, sometimes there might be fluid trapped inside and so on and so forth. It's a bad pot. This is what you call non-destructive testing. She was doing non-destructive testing. Testing without destroying, because he could do it by cutting the walls and finding out whether it is a good pot or not, you know. And she would go and sell. She was a businesswoman. She would sell these pots. But what concerned me, which is really actually the topic of my PhD, was that as she was aging, she started throwing away pots that I thought were good pots. Out of respect, I couldn't correct my grandmother, so I will allow her to throw away these pots. And the reason for that was because her hearing was deteriorating. Today, you can use artificial intelligence to deal with that problem. The topic of my thesis was fault identification using neural networks and vibration data. Exactly the same concept, you know. And of course, instead of a sound, you would actually get a signal. You would even use signal processing tools that you can trace their origins here in Hungary. Wigner Ville distribution. I heard that Wigner was actually from here, Budapest, you know. And this is what you call automation. What this process actually does, it automates a process that if it is done manually, it becomes imperfect because my grandmother's hearing would deteriorate naturally. and so on and so forth. This is the good part of AI. Creating an AI system that is able to solve problems. And of course, the same technology now is being used in medical care, where you go to hospitals and you collect signals real time. And the system is able to analyze real time, which obviously many young people might not appreciate this. You had to have a nurse who would come every 30 minutes and take signals and decide and so on and so forth, you know. So this automation process of using AI to increase productivity, to increase healthcare, to increase the lifespans of people, transportation, and so on and so forth, is actually what Charles Dickens characterized as the age of hope. But there is this other darker side. And I'm going to talk about some of the issues that are problematic with AI. Firstly, AI is not a high-precision technology. And many people don't actually realize that. When you are doing AI, they tell you that you train you divide your data into 3 parts: training, validation, and testing. And if you come and tell any AI expert that you got 100% on your test data, they say it is overtrained, it's not good enough, and it is going to perform poorly when it is expected to make predictions out of sample. Very, very important. And in fact, you know, there is a theorem, it's called PAC, probably approximately correct theory. You know, you can go and check in any AI textbook what probably approximately correct theorem, what it is all about. It basically means that this technology is not perfect and it is going to make mistakes. And because it is going to make mistakes, we need to have guardrails. The other one, which is very important, is that when you train an AI system, you use something called the maximum likelihood approach. People say, I don't want to get into the statistics, the difficulties of statistics. What this basically means that it works very well when you have huge amounts of data. But it also means, by definition, it marginalizes. It marginalizes rare events. I'll give you an example. A few years ago in South African hospitals, they started having Cuban doctors. And they couldn't quite speak the local languages. And we were tasked with the responsibility of developing an AI tool which will be able to automatically translate from Spanish to isiXhosa. isiXhosa is a very interesting language. It's a language that Nelson Mandela actually speaks as a first language. It has cliques. But these cliques are only 5% of the language because it's a Bantu language. And the cliques are because the original people of South Africa, the Khoisan, if you read, they look quite different from us. And when you look at Nelson Mandela, you can almost see the characteristics of Khoisan, the Asiatic look that you can see, you know. And they speak one of the oldest languages. For the long time, I was asking myself, how do they know it's the oldest language? Did they do carbon dating? They said, this is the language that you can actually speak without necessarily a voice box. Because you're just basically moving the tongue, you know. And then we create this system, but whenever the clicks came about, it will filter it as noise. Why? Because it's not a dominant feature of the language, and the maximum likelihood approach will definitely just obviously eliminate it. And then the third part is that because of economic reasons, the AI that is deployed now does not give you confidence intervals in its solutions. It's really for economic reasons. You can formulate it in Bayesian framework and you can get confidence intervals and so on and so forth. But we know because of the Monte Carlo simulations that you will use to untangle, to solve these posterior probabilities. Again, another great Hungarian, Edward Teller, was one of the people who wrote the 1953 paper on Monte Carlo, Hastings method, you know. We don't have confidence intervals. I'll give you another example. Mirror, mirror on the wall. I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, what is the relationship between Marwala and Marwala? It said confidently, Marwala is the wife of Marwala. That's my grandmother. Why does it do that? It does that because if you go to the relational part of the database where two people are related to each other, they are much more likely to be husband and wife than grandfather, grandmother and grandson. I went and did a study as to who is mentioned along their grandparent or their great-grandparent, and the further you go, the more difficult it is. The only person that I could find was actually Jeff Hinton, who is mentioned alongside his great-great-grandfather, who happens to be George Boole, who invented Boolean algebra, you know. So there is a condition for you to be mentioned with your great-grandmother. Both of you have to be famous. Otherwise, it is not going to happen. But it gives you this statement. Marwala is the grandson of, is the wife of, is the husband of Marwala, without any confidence intervals. And secondly, if you go and check the accuracy of that statement, and you can measure it, you can just take it into ones and zeros and see out of the statement what ones and zeros are wrong, and you get about 90%. And a very important issue when it comes to governance is that accuracy, which is what AI developers actually use, they never use the word truth, is not truth. But we want this AI system to be truthful. Now, I've given you both the advantages and the disadvantages. Some of them are algorithmic disadvantages. Some of them are mathematical. Some of them is just the fact that the dominant form of AI operates in continuous space instead of discrete space, because you have to be able to differentiate the functions. But we need to govern it. How do we govern it? I have a 7-point framework, which I think is very important to govern this technology. Firstly, we need to agree what are the values that are going to define this algorithm. And if you go to any form of a governance model, you have them tabulated. One of them is safety. It has to be safe. If it can destroy us, if it can be weaponized, if it can be put on a weapon that has agency without the human in the loop, We need to do something about that, you know. So it has to be safe and secure. But it also has to be transparent. We need to know what it is doing. It has to be truthful. Even though the people who develop it are not talking about truth, they are talking about accuracy. And so on and so forth. It has to be explainable so that if it is used to deny or offer you a loan, and when it is denied, and you want to find out why, somebody can explain why, if they have used AI system. So the problem with these values is that they are almost always conflicting. Accuracy comes at the expense of transparency. To make AI system accurate, you have to simplify it. Certainly the models, if they are simplified, you can be able to understand what it is happening. So it comes at the same expense. What do you do about this? Opportunity seeking versus risk aversion. It's a trade-off, you know. And as I was thinking about this, I was reminded of a class in optimization. There's this thing called multi-criteria optimization. When you have more than one objective and often very conflicting to one another, what do you do? And Pareto, famous mathematician from Italy, came up with something called the Pareto optimal frontier, which basically means you weigh if this objective is 90% important versus this, what do I do? The Pareto optimal frontier does not give you a solution. It gives you a frontier. You still have to decide where in the frontier you are going to operate. And we hear now that the European regulatory culture is more risk averse. We also hear now that the American AI governance model is more opportunity seeking. Where in this Pareto optimal frontier between opportunity seeking and risk aversion is? Do you locate yourself? And that is actually, it depends on your values. And therefore it is fundamentally subjective. These are the choices that you have to make. And each choice that you make will have its own advantages, and it will also have its own disadvantages. So these are complicated issues just on the value itself. The second part is the issue of human behavior. There's been a great deal of developments over the years in behavioral psychology. How do we create an AI that is safe by changing how... By the way, that is a very interesting ringtone. Please share it with me. Yes. So the role players who are involved in AI, are the users. The users are very, very important. The second one is actually the people who are developing this technology. The third one are the organizations, whether it is government, whether it is the companies themselves. So we have to create a behavior that makes AI safe from all the risks and is able to give us the opportunity so that we can be able to exploit all these advantages. And I don't want to talk about, because once you talk about human behavior, you can easily get into social engineering. And it becomes ideology versus another ideology, which is not helpful, you know. But I think we have systems in place to change behavior. It's called education. Education is a system to change behavior. You inform people about advantages, about disadvantages, and they understand. You don't prescribe how they are going to make their choices, but you give them the options and the tools to be able to do that. Very, very important, which basically means in this whole scope of regulating AI, education is absolutely very, very important. When I was the president of University of Johannesburg in 2018, we actually introduced a compulsory AI literacy course for all the students. Literacy does not give you the ability to go and code a multi-layer perceptron with 30 million units, but it gives you the understanding so that at least you can be able to navigate this space well as a user, as a developer, and so on and so forth. Then the third aspect, which is very important, is how do you incentivize people to do the right things? In economics, they have a field called mechanism design. It's almost like what we call control design. You have to imagine how a good AI culture looks like, and you identify things that you can be able to control that will create a society that will use it in such a way that it is safe, for example. It is transparent, for example, and you are able to make all the give and takes and so on and so forth. And then comes the issues of policies and regulations. And that is where the European Union is very good at this. And of course, for me, I would say, yes, policies must protect people, but it should not overprotect them that they do not use the technology at all. Because we know if you don't want to be harmed by AI, go to an island and never interact with it. And we know that you are not going to get the benefits that comes with this technology. So policies and regulations are quite important. And then standards. And the issue of standards in AI is absolutely very, very crucial. And 90% accuracy in medical diagnosis is very good. You are a doctor. You will agree with me that diagnosis is never 100%. And 90% diagnosis is actually quite good. But 90% accuracy in an AI system that is controlling an aerospace system is deadly. So different standards for different industries. As we are standardizing, industries becomes important. Complexity of whatever you are regulating becomes important. And therefore, the people in that specific area that know what is the best, what is the golden performance in that becomes quite important. Then there's the issue of law. Some of these things that needs to be regulated are actually just moral choices. And I seem to remember many, many years ago when somebody said, morality cannot be legislated. So not everything that needs to be governed must be legislated.
If it is dictatorship.
Yeah.
If it is authoritarian rule.
Yeah. Look, it's a very interesting perspective. Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes, because these are complicated spaces, the legislators don't know when to stop. Who actually advises them to say, you can't legislate accuracy of 90% in medical diagnosis, because by definition it's also changing. Whether it is Moore's law, whatever, that drives this, And then the last thing that is also quite important is the issue of institutions that are going to govern this. The United Nations, international organizations, I think they have a role to play. If you are regulating something that crosses borders of countries, whether it is cross-border data, whether it is social media, which obviously is crossing border, the systems that you are using in social media probably did not originate here. They probably are being operated from afar, so they are crossing border. So there has to be an element of international law that comes into the picture. And yesterday, when we met the president of Hungary, he emphasized this point. And he pondered whether the international lawyers here in Hungary actually understand AI. I thought that was a valid question, you know. But there are certain, and cross-border regulation is a big issue. I come from the African continent, and in the African continent, to give you an example, you have a river that crosses 11 different countries. It's called the River Nile. So it starts in Uganda. So it will make sense that whatever you're throwing into the river upstream must actually be transparent so that the people downstream are able to know. You know? And this is a very important part of peace building. I think international law, international governance is a fundamental aspect of peace building. You know? But there are certain things that needs to be done at the national level. And there are certain things that needs to be done by industry itself. I will be very, very worried if a government official will start specifying what type of activation functions must be used in a neural network that is used in a language model. And by the way, we should not take this for granted. There is a culture of people regulating things they don't understand. So it's very, very important that we need to do that. So I know I have gone through my entire speech without looking at it, but I am just going to say one more thing that is in the speech. Quesue nom. Is that correct? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Marwala. And you managed to give us a keynote, which I think all of us could understand. And that's amazing, since the topic of AI is something that we just discussed last week at the Institute here, that everybody understands something else when we say AI. So there is a dire need for definitions, for terminology, for common concepts that everybody can understand. And I think this morning we got a pretty good idea of every important issue that you mentioned and is important with regards to AI. I was wondering if there's any questions from the audience before we move on to the panel. I'm pretty sure that the panelists will have their own 10 cents to add to the topic. But I was wondering if there's any immediate questions right now for clarifications or anything. All right, we will keep it for the end. And now I will give the floor over to Ivana, and you can introduce the panelists. And you have until noon to go.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Professor Marwala, for this inspirational talk. And I would like to say that this panel was, the conception of this panel was to have a larger number of participants who are coming from different, very different backgrounds and who have very different perspectives of AI. And the concept was really to, not just to reflect on the keynote, but rather to answer to some of the basic questions. And before we start, before I tell you what the questions are, so the concept is to have different answers to different questions and reflections, and then Q&A from the audience. So let me first introduce all of our panelists, and then we can establish a system of from which side we start. So to the closest to me, okay. So David Daou is coming from the UNU-EHS in Bonn, Germany. Zsolt Ződi is from Ludovika University of Public Services, Hungary. Then we have Szabolcs Márka from Columbia University in the USA. István Tarrósy from University of Pécs in Hungary. Then we have Anni Dasho Sharko from Luarasi University in Albania. And Balázs Barta, Pannon Business Network, and our colleague at iASK Hungary. And finally, István Petak, Genomat Health, USA, and a colleague at iASK Hungary. So now I would like to ask, because we are talking about transformative technologies, and AI is considered, and we all understand AI as one of these transformative technologies. But as we want to go deeper into really defining what we are talking about, this is a very nice opportunity to actually ponder upon what does it mean transformative, what is transformative in these technologies, what do we mean by that, and do we only mean AI, do we mean any other technologies? So we will have the concept of the roundtable discussion is that we have 3 minutes for reflections for each of you. So let's start with what do we mean by transformative? David, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So from my own perspective, the way I see technology in general, and the transformative part of it, is like every time when you cross a barrier. So not to make things faster only, because that's what somehow AI is doing, but it's more like when you really come with a new innovation. And so if I want to talk, let me focus on 2 things here, not just AI, but I want to focus on satellite remote sensing. So basically, let's talk about Earth observation using the satellite remote sensing. So the past years, there were lots of changes. And so the most important one is first, in terms of technology itself, we moved from just one satellite, or like few big satellites, to now a constellation of satellites, very tiny ones. And, but they are doing a much better job because they are, around the globe 24 hours a day. And that's amazing, especially when you look at it from a perspective of someone trying to observe like disaster risks, such as earthquake, volcanoes, flood, and so on. So if you want to save people, you really need this constellation. Now, this constellation alone cannot do much, but combined with AI, for example, the foundation models, it makes a huge revolution as well. Why? Because foundation models are able to analyze satellite data. These are images, and you need to understand that the images, to be able to analyze them, it requires lots of computing power, but also like fast computing powers. And then the good thing here is foundation model is able to do that. And why? Where is the problem here? The problem is we have thousands and thousands of images coming like every hours, every minute from the satellites. And then these thousands of images, in the past, we used, we had like to take every image, divide it, and, say, in this image, we have a building, we have a tree, we have, I don't know, there's a dog, there's a human, there's a car. But now, with the foundation model, things change. We can do that automatically. We'll talk later about the accuracy that Professor Marwala mentioned. So that's a different story. But what we need also to know that we're talking here about petabytes of data. Do you know how much is a petabyte of data? So this is like 1,000 terabyte. But now I can tell you, we reached around 10 exabyte. 10 exabyte, this is like 10 millions of terabyte. And this is just the satellite data that keeps on growing. So eventually you need powerful tool like AI. So I think I'll stop here. There's a negative side that I wanted to point, but I'll keep it for later. So.
Thank you. I just add two things, maybe minor things to this. What is transformative? So you can decide what is transformative after the technology has been spread across the society. So ex post factum, so after a few years. And from this perspective, if you see that the AI type of AI technology that is widely used across the population are the foundational models and large language models, especially large language models. So I think it's very early to. It is a transformative technology, but we don't know how it will transform the society. And I would just want to draw your attention to a few technologies that set to be or supposed to be transformative in the last few years, but at least now it seems that they are not. So for example, the blockchain. It was like 5 years ago, it was a big hype around blockchain, but it turned out that actually blockchain will be important in certain fields, but in terms of transformativeness, that will transform the whole society, for example, eliminating all the institutions which are based on trust as a trustless technology, that proved to be, that's just simply not true. The other is the metaverse. There was a big bet on metaverse by the Meta. Even they changed the name of the company because of the metaverse, but it proved to be a big failure business-wise. So to decide whether a technology is transformative or not, that is, I think, it took years to decide. And from this perspective, we don't know that what kind of AI, because AI is an umbrella term. It comprises all kind of technologies, and what kind of AI will transform the society in which ways we just simply don't know yet. So that's my remark on the topic.
So it is a pleasure and honor to share not just this room but the future with visionaries, with great leaders. You all are. Thank you, Zsolt. Thank you, Feri, to make this joy possible. Leaders of United Nations University, leaders of Hungarian government, city of Kőszeg, who welcomes us here, and very importantly, leaders of the future. Minds we shape here. A great honor. So why do I say this? Not what you think. I say this because Kőszeg is the place where we can together assess big questions that will change the future. No other university, no other place allows this in their silos. Kőszeg, we can, all different minds, think together as a hive mind to think about the really important questions. So what are some of these questions? I will tell you two major worries I have about AI, and then perhaps a third one, which is either good or bad, but not what you think. Murderous machines, genocidal machines, they are not the worst. They are absolutely not the worst. There are worse things. So when my son started high school, what did I get from the principal of that high school? The question and the appreciation. Mr. Márka, thank you very much for trusting your son's education with us. Then I realized they are very powerful. So I ask you the question, What will happen when an organization has an AI that will influence our young minds? That will be cannons of the ships of colonialists. And these will not be nation states. These will be organizations, corporations, who will take away our life and freedom. At the end, we will not even remember that once we were free. That is a very important question. Who educates AI? Who determines our future through AI? That's a lot more dangerous than any murderous weapon. Second, Cicero, Seneca, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Rubens had access to the most powerful AIs of the time that were more powerful than our AIs today. What will happen? What will happen when we forget to earn mastery before delegation? Current AIs allow us to delegate before mastering our future. We will all be megmesters. Hungarians understand. That will take away our future. Yeah? Induced dilettantism will kill us all. We should have a system where our young people can become masters before delegating their brain to some organizations, AI, who will take away their freedom forever. And that is something you should think about. And the bright side, well, if you do it right, individualized education is in reach. The bright future where everybody can get the best education is in reach. But be careful who writes the books. Thank you very much.
A wholehearted welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Just a couple of additional thoughts I'd like to collect when looking at what transformation is. We have been talking about the change, right? A very complex change that embraces us all. And when we talk about change, to me, it's not only about, transforming, transiting, but also to keeping something after the change took place. And that is a very difficult question, especially if you take a look around in the global arena of enhanced competition, driven by a lot of factors, of course, the global capitalist threads and many more you can name. So to be able to keep something that will re-socialize us, because that's again connected to how we then place ourselves in this new context, and that will entail re-socialization. Yeah, we have to learn a lot about ourselves, but also we have to learn a lot from others. And if it's a hyphen kind of an enhanced competitive space, it's very difficult to come together and collaborate. Especially when we have a global arena, an evolving global arena where we see the changing nature of global order, where you see America first, Hungary first, everybody first, me first. And what about the rest? And what about us? What about us, as humanity? Especially when we have this strain of complexity coming from all these new technologies. So it's about education, it's about the decolonization of the mind, it's about basically understanding the very deep overarching threads of complexity of this change of transformative nature, where we have to come together and share views and collaborate. And it's very difficult, I think, even more and more so, especially when we look at what we need to keep what we have transformed into as kind of outcomes or results. And basically, from two angles, I would then conclude, infrastructures are needed, yeah? Physical infrastructures, human infrastructures, resources infrastructures, yeah? From a physical perspective and a human perspective at the same time. Transformation is inevitable from that perspective, coming, with the drive of the new technologies. But once again, this is what we have been doing. This is the thing that is needed all across, coming together, sharing views, and forging a new kind of global knowledge community that will let us keep what we have been transforming into, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, it's the first time, and I really appreciate and thank you for inviting. And I am discussing from a different perspective. I'm IT expert, and even leading the university for almost 10 years as vice rector. I'm transforming the behavior of the university. Coming to the speech of the yesterday professor saying that we're going fast to come to the university of future, which is going to be transformative as well. Bringing to the university a different perspective, almost from 12 years at the Ministry of Finance, dealing with transformation necessity for the public servant persons and services, going back to 4 to 6 year electroenergetic corporate, differentiation, totally the necessity of having to transform processes, helping my near future student to support the transformation as an innovative idea, that they're going to be the near future public and government specialist, and why not to the private corporate as well. Everything is transforming yourself, dealing with programmers and networking guys, and believe that everything it will be that the University of Future through the transformation process and IE process as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation and being number 7 in the panel, or 6, so I have no chance to say anything new. And when I was listening to the presentation of Mr. Marwala, and he was speaking about values and education, and you are always referring to your grandmother. I said, okay, I like to also think of my grandmother, but nothing came to my mind. And then I said, the only sentence she said, she had the best body on the beach, but maybe I cannot quote it here on a scientific conference. But what is the beauty of this is that we always forget the social aspect of technology. We always love talking about infrastructure and models and neural networks, but the people is missing in many cases. Yeah? And when I was thinking and spontaneously preparing for this presentation, I was collecting some data, and I was thinking about the role of education in the whole process. And I just looked at the numbers. So digitalization started about 20 years ago. And now 42% of Hungarian SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses, do not have even the basic digital skills. 45% of them do not have even a web page. And then we are talking about AI revolution and how to make it happen in the business sector and in the industry sector. So we are lagging a lot, and I fully agree that this technology is transformative. The question is how it will make happen. And I also fully agree with you that it has an infrastructure side and a human side. Yeah? The challenge with digitalization, that everybody could spend his money from his own pocket for that. With AI, it's not possible, because you have to have huge investments for the infrastructure, which means a big concentration of money spending for the technology. So I just visited Bologna last week. They spent 1 billion euros for technical infrastructure. And then they built an industrial park next to that on 200 hectares to develop applications of AI. So it's again a strong concentration of knowledge. And we believe that AI will bring democratization and new opportunities to a lot of people. But on the other hand, we see a very controversial process according to that. And I just also looked at some interesting numbers. So 84% of people globally never used AI. That's a fact. What we also know is that 15.9% used only the free version. And 0.3% paid $20 a month for AI. Yeah. So when we talk about general conclusions about AI, it's a very, very niche society segment and academia we are talking about. So the big challenge is how to step out of this and start people educating on using these solutions.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure and honor to be here on this panel. And really, it's an honor to actually represent the field of medicine and healthcare as a doctor in this discussion. And when I was thinking about what I could define transformative, how do I define something, a technology transformative? Of course, I think about any technology that really changes the life of patients, that can save the life of a patient. That's transformative. That's an impact, and it's very hard impact. It's easy to measure. It's measurable. And I was also thinking about my grandmother, that of course, as an exercise we all have to do, and the reason why I'm here today and the reason why I'm Hungarian is that my grandmother, who grew up in a little village in Austria, actually became an orphan when she was 12 years old. And she migrated to Budapest for a better life, actually. In interesting times. It was the beginning of the last century, of course, the 20th century. Budapest was a fantastic cultural and economic center in the eye of an Austrian. And the reason why she became an orphan is because her mother died in pneumonia. Just very simple pneumonia. And the reason why she died, of course, because there was no access to antibiotics. Today, we have a chance to survive pneumonia thanks to antibiotics. Myself also went through this. And so we have to keep in mind that technologies like antibiotics that really transformed our lives and allowed us to live twice as long, basically. That was the first revolutionary period of medicine in the first half of the last century when we discovered the antibiotics and insulin, for example, and that's why we live twice as long. Now, of course, the question is how long we will live after this revolution we are going through today. And this is what we want to believe, that we will live longer. That's a measurable impact. And so in the beginning of this century, we went through, the first revolution was, of course, the genomics, genetic revolution. In 2003, we completed the Human Genome Project. So we had our print of our life, the code, the 3 billion letters. It's amazing. So it doesn't really, it only changes in millions of years, so we don't have to worry about. So we have the blueprint of life, and we have countable number of genes, and we have this. And we started to understand the genetic background of diseases and the mechanism of diseases, so we no longer just see the symptoms, but also the mechanism behind. And just one example, what I mean by impact, that in 1995, when I graduated from med school, I started working in the pediatric oncology department. So I chose the most difficult job probably in medicine. Because I wanted to see the impact of medicine, because you can save a whole life if you can save a child. And it was devastating to see that a fraction of children with leukemia died despite of chemotherapy, because we knew that their cancer cells harbored a genetic alteration called BCR-ABL, and we saw it in our microscope, but we knew that this gene is driving the cell growth and survival, and we couldn't do anything about it. That was the genomic discovery. But then by 2000, there was a fantastic doctor, a visionary physician in Oregon, who asked a pharma company, for a small molecule that he knew that would inhibit this gene. And he organized, it was Dr. Brooker, we have to say his name, and he organized an investigator-initiated clinical trial with 20 patients with leukemia. And 17 years later, he showed the picture of these patients celebrating that 17th anniversary of this clinical trial. Of course, because they survived, despite of the prognosis of few months. And how it affected me is that the same drug became available for these children with leukemia. So in between 95 and 2000, I had to watch children die, and after 2000, they survived. So we have to look back. So these are impact. So that discovery made an impact, and now children can survive who are diagnosed with this disease. And so AI is the next after genomics. Now it's the AI, because now we know the targets, we know which proteins to target, but thanks to AI, it doesn't take now for years to develop a new drug. Thanks to AlphaFold, we can design the 3D structure of a protein and design a drug that directly inhibits. So it doesn't take years, but it just takes months to develop a new drug and repeat this wonder, what we achieved for these children. And so I think AI, just to mention AI, because I really want to emphasize the benefit and the opportunity side over also the risk side. And I really much agree that we have to always measure the two sides. And we can make two mistakes, is to use it and not to use it. And both can be devastating and can cause people to die, because a lost opportunity to help someone is just as much terrible as to actually lose somebody because of the risk and side effects. So that's the big debate, and I'm very much involved in discussions with the FDA and the European regulators in this subject. What is the right balance in this? And so, but I see that we already see in oncology, AI is revolutionary. And there are, of course, this drug discovery part is for the future, but just what is really contributing is what I call is a big group of AI technologies that contribute to equity in healthcare by allowing patients to access the same quality of diagnostics. For example, because we have shortages in radiologists, pathologists, and now AI can take it over. And there will be another revolution I will more talk about later, maybe in the afternoon, is that our common dream is personalized medicine. And this is another type of AI that will help us achieve that, a safe personalized medicine. And so I'm very excited to be part of this panel and also to work together with iASK and the United Nations University and all of you to make sure that humanity benefits from the opportunities from this AI revolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, István, for making it painfully obvious what does it mean transformation in your field. It is a very good opportunity to talk to very different representatives of different disciplines and different scholars who will tell us very different perspectives. And I wanted to ask you, it was a good point to my colleague Balázs, Barta, that maybe we can make it now a different round. And the second question, really, maybe you even answered, because it was about showing in your specific field what would be the maybe less obvious examples of of how these transformative technologies are really helping us, and maybe some kind of examples that are not so obvious to us from the other disciplines and from coming from. So maybe if there is something that you would still emphasize, but you already mentioned, you know, that I think this is very revealing to us to understand how from genomics you went to AI. But if there is anything you would like to add, or you would like to...
Yes, of course, I already given some examples, so I don't want to take too much time. But I just wanted to also tell you that, yes, the risks... So now there are over 1,000 AI-based technologies have been approved by the FDA. 1,000, amazingly. So just one data. Most of these AI technologies are in the radiology. We know that, for example, to diagnose cancer, lung cancer on an X-ray, AI is statistically better than humans. It's painfully to say, but we have to say. So it's been a long debate that there are some aspects of medicine when human AI together perform better, and there are certain aspects when situations when humans are better still. For example, when you have to diagnose a disease just based on discussion with the patient, based on anamnesis, and humans are still better. I mean, it's a good news, maybe. So we are, because as soon as the patient enters the room, you already scan, and you already know a lot. And this type of insight the AI still lacks. So what we really have to establish is where we can use it. Now, of course, in medicine is a regulated industry. So as Rector Marwala said, we really have to know the confidence intervals and this precision and sensitivity. And also we have to set our expectations of safety and benefit over state of the art. And that's very important. So it's very important to simply look at this as a technology, as any other technology, medical technology, and we have to use the same stringency of medical science and scientific methodology to prove efficacy and safety, just as like with any other medical devices.
Thank you. Just before we continue, I would like to facilitate this transdisciplinary maybe exchange, and I would like to give the word to Zsolt, Ződi just for a quick remark.
Yeah. just a quick remark about the transformative impact of on professions and fields that we are in. Actually, in two fields, in law and in higher education. And the interesting thing is that in higher education, I think that the impact of LLMs is just simply devastating. There is a historian called Niall Ferguson. He has a very interesting theory about the cloister and the starship, and he says that in certain points from higher education, the LLMs should be excluded entirely. And this is the cloister type. Because the students have to have the basics of expert knowledge. Because if they don't have the basics of expert knowledge, they start to use the LLMs before they have this knowledge. They cannot even put the right question and cannot control the output of the system. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story is law, where there are voices like Richard Susskind, who is a futurologist of law, a lawyer, and he says that actually in a decade, lawyers will practically disappear, and that's a good question whether it's good or bad, because if you see from that point of view that the layman, so ordinary people, will have access to law without the intermediation of expensive lawyers and very complicated institutions, so they have directly access to to the legal solutions, then they can manage their all their legal cases without this expensive intermediation. That's a good. That could be a very good thing. So what I'm just saying that it depends very much on the profession and the field and that social field we are talking about. Whether what is the impact, or whether it's good or bad, the impact of the AI. Yeah.
Before we bury all the radiologists, I'm from a family of radiologists, and they have more jobs than ever. And basically, if you are smart, then it's a co-creator for you. And the question is, are you smart enough to be an AI as a co-creator companion for you, or it replaces you? So this is why I said education is so important. So just a small remark on that. And yeah, you were also mentioning about new technologies and what other directions might be also interesting in the future. So I was just thinking on quantum computing. So if there's an area where I think there will be again some transformative changes, that's quantum computing for various reasons. And coming back to other activities, very similar to what István also explained, is about how we work together with AI. And then if I can make some self-promotion of our organization, on top of iASK, we are also working on how robots are working with humans. Yeah? And because we tend to forget the human, and we always say human in the loop, and that's very negative in my perspective for a human. I don't want to be on the same level as a sensor or a 3D printer. I want to be over the loop. Yeah? So globally there was a big tendency, it was called Industry 4.0, that all the machines should be connected, and sensors and the cyber physical system to create digital twins for simulation and technical things like that. And then they realized that people were so bored, frustrated, they wanted to destroy machines, like a long time ago in France, yeah? And then they said, we shouldn't forget about the people, so let's make Industry 5.0. It already tells a lot that if you want to think of people, that's one more layer. That's so stupid. And so Industry 5.0, but that was about concentrating how people can better interact with the machine for the sake of a better productivity, and not for the sake of the individual who is working with the machines. And what we are working on and what we are focusing on, and this is why it's fabulous that we can connect with iASK and think of on a more abstract level, is how humans can benefit from working with machines, how humans can benefit from working with AI. And then comes the question to the morals and ethics and transparency, how to make it for the benefit of the individual. So I think these aspects sounds abstract and strange, but they are crucial for when we are thinking about the application of AI.
It will be me? Okay. I'm coming to something which is really a necessity, at least in Albania, have been for so many years during the high students, near future students, high school, that they are pretending to come and visit our universities and get the proper academic area where they want to go. Mostly at the Western Balkan area, there are parents who choose where their children should go. And it's really, we need to try to teach the parents, which is exactly the market needs, where the kid can go, and we need the kid as well, because the parents finished their school, they are working, and it was really huge work for us. And personally, I spend a lot of time dealing with such processes, where their kids should go, what it will be in the near future, are we ready for the market needs, and so on. As I have been working for so many years, and I'm having at the university as well my development team, we are in the process since previous year for transformative technology application, which is AI-based career guidance systems. This is going to help all high school students to choose the proper academic background that we are offering to them. And this is somehow helping all faculties with all applicants that where they want to go, what the system is supporting them. And mostly the system would use academic performance data, personal interest, cognitive and aptitude assessment, labor market demand forecast, university admission requirements, employment probability data. This year, we have finished with the development process, and this year we thought differently. We are going to bring those near future students who like IT to come to work with our development team and to see how we are going to prototype a part of the system by our new future students, helping the, let's say, the whole range of the near future students to understand where they're going and what they're going to believe after they are finalizing bachelor and master degree. Preparing them mostly for the market, because mass market nowadays is requiring ready students. They are not going to get mostly theoretical and less practical, especially at IT area. We are suffering a lot. This is why we are cooperating mostly with all IT systems, companies and small startups to support the whole system from the beginning. Thank you.
As a political scientist coming from the interdisciplinary field of African studies, I'd like to share with you some thoughts connected to the African continent, and especially to the continental framework focused on the digital transformation. The African Union, as you all know, as the continent-wide integrative framework of the African entities, has developed a strategy to, and I quote, guide a common coordinated response to reap the benefits of the fourth industrial revolution with its digital transformation strategy for Africa 2022-2030. Last January in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia's capital, I kind of co-organized an expert panel at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and there is a division over there called TICKET, Technology, Innovation, Connectivity, and Infrastructure Division. And we learned a lot about what Africa wants. And actually, if you check the long-term strategic vision of the African continent, driven by and managed by the African Union itself, that's the Agenda 2063. Which was launched in 2013, and there are 5 10-year implementation plans up until 2063, amongst which you will find, and that is actually the second goal of Agenda 2063, and I quote, a well-educated citizens and skills revolution underpinned by science, technology, and innovation. So we basically circumnavigate this morning around education and education-focused kind of potentials all across, and I think that's great. So what Africa wants? Amongst those, if you check digital transformation, and of course we have listed a lot of opportunities, but also acknowledging the numerous risks out there, let me just again put on the table the question of infrastructure and cybersecurity, as a matter of fact, right? Security in general, but cybersecurity infrastructure, yeah? Because there were a lot of incidents over the past many years across Africa too. And these have grown with a hampering impact on development. The continent risks losing around $10 trillion in financial crimes linked to cyber attacks, according to CNBC Africa from November 2024. So definitely, number one task, as far as I'm concerned, is to step up Africa's preparedness. But in general, I can transpose that basically to the global space, to step up global preparedness, local as well as regional preparedness, as a matter of fact. And the last bit is that when we focus on Africa, we many times might hear the now, kind of slogan statement, but I think it has the gist, coming from a very known Ghanaian economist, George Ayete, who many years back said, there should be African solutions to African problems. And of course, this kind of term, once again, was used in negative connotations as well, overlooking again, Africa with that very colonial kind of mindset. But no, Here, what is important is that Africa itself, in general, generalizing for the entire continent, which is probably the most multicolored continent on Earth, and region, macro-region of the globe, to really grab what local needs are, so that education, skills, whatever can be developed accordingly, and then this preparedness can basically be fostered. Thank you.
So one day, very special day, I got a gift from Zsuzsa, my wife. I was able to lift into the air, sitting on jets of water. I was able to fly without practice. Why? So there are professions where people do the same thing over and over again that requires proficiency. In some other professions, they do similar things over and over again that requires knowledge. In my profession in physics, I do things first, and that is the last time I do that thing. I always do things first and last time. I have to do them right the first time. I have no time to practice. And when you understand something, you can do that. So my business is understanding. I always understand before I do. So that is where AI is fantastic. We have repeated success where AI allows us to chart territories that were inaccessible to us before. AI lets us understand complex systems that are impossible to understand for individuals, even the brightest, for teams. We solved problems with AI that were impossible to solve for teams of thousands of the most brilliant people on Earth, because AI allows us to see that is hidden from us. What we do, we never treat AI as a product. We don't release AI. We create AI, but we create AI to help us understand. So what changed in physics? We use AI for root cause analysis and other things where we look at extremely complex machines, complexity like a space shuttle, very complex machines. And with the AI, we can understand why they break, how can they operate optimally. So AI allows us to understand, and that understanding allows us to invent new mathematics. And if you want to learn one field that will change your life, that's mathematics. Because mathematics allows you to cast your understanding in a script that allows others to stand on your shoulder, allows others to make the future better. Mathematics still didn't reach music. Music has sheet music and music. Sheet music is a very poor representation of the beauty of music, but it allows the composer to communicate with the future. In mathematics, we don't distinguish what goes in the mind of the mathematician and the symbolism. Mathematics can improve when we dissociate the two. But when we understand things, we can do them efficiently, quickly, and on a way that we can build on. So when AI is a closed box, it's worthless. Interpretable AI is everything. Don't use AI. Understand what it does, and then you control the world. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll give 3 examples, actually, about application that we are developing at UNU-EHS in Bonn. And so these are related, like, how the technology can work in order to help, like, the Global South. Because mainly we only work with Global South. And so the first example was how to improve early warning system. And so we used we trained lots of satellite data images, and then we used these images in order to predict the floods like 6 days in advance. And that basically saved the life of many people in Mozambique. And this happened recently. And so this was actually an application developed by us. So another thing, in Africa, in Tanzania specifically, so where I was there like a few months ago, so we coordinated with many actually experts in programming and coding like us, and then where they had to develop a new tool, and this tool allows them just to take a picture of the crops they have, and then just by taking the picture, they will know if this crop is sick or if it needs water. And that's very important because first, you don't need to give water all the time. You just give the water when this plant needs water. So this will reduce also the drought in these areas. But also from another side, if the plant is sick, you don't need anymore to bring all these experts from around the world to check the image and tell you if the plant is sick or not. So now you do it everything automatically, just using the satellite images and the image that you take on the ground, plus AI eventually. So these are two examples. A third example is related actually to atmospheric physics. And so basically, you also want to know if it's going to rain. And in the past, we could analyze the cloud and try to understand their shape, their size, their color, and if it's going to rain or not. That's very nice. But what we couldn't do in the past is like do a 3D analysis of the cloud. But now we are able to do it because of like the new satellites, such as EarthCare, that was launched 2 years ago. And so this is allowing us to do like a much better job, and it helps also farmer to understand if do they need to give water, yes or not, today or tomorrow. But this also, what I didn't say is that the cloud has a very important impact on the climate, because through the cloud, you will also understand if you are going to cool the planet or to heat the planet. But I'm not going now into details. This depends on actually the color of the cloud. But then I'll leave it for another time. Now, I want to mention 3, let's say, downsides of the AI. I will start with the most important thing because, we are developing a code. This code doesn't work unless you have 4 things. So you need data, then you need to create your algorithm, then you have to get the results, and finally you need to see the impact, right? And I can tell you, everything can creep at every stage of these 4, let's say, sections. But what's important, and this is a question to all of you, because we are developers, we know what we are doing, but ask yourself when you use ChatGPT, for example, or DeepSeek, or Claude, or any type of LLM, just not to advertise just one side of the globe. So when you use them, ask yourself the following question, because we do optimization, right? We are modelers, we do optimization all the time, we need to do it. Now the question is, when we do optimization, to whom we are doing it? Is it for the people? Or is it for the firms? Is it for the governments? So this is a very, very important question, so think of it. So that's one point. Another point we are facing sometimes, so we develop a model, and then AI suddenly tells us, we are observing, water, and then we imagine this is flood. And the accuracy is 94%. And so basically, we tell the disaster risk management, send some people there, you need to go and save them now. Because we know we have 94% that tells us there's a flood there. And basically, they send the people there, it turns out it wasn't a flood. It turns out that basically we had a confusion between detecting the cloud and the flood. And so basically what happened, by sending the people there, first we risked their life, but also we didn't save other people. So maybe we killed other people indirectly. And so we need to be careful on these 2 points. So I think I'll end here because I'm more than 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I would like to just maybe try to focus a little bit on the main topic of the conference, peace, lasting peace. But we did talk about human security. So the first part of the title, I would like to just focus on also UN values and peace, human dignity, equality, sustainable development. So just one more round of reflections, and maybe we can start again from this side. Just this, you can make a comment either on transformative technologies and core UN values, or perhaps we can just focus on aspects of peace or how technologies can help us achieve lasting peace. So these are the two options of how you would like to approach the answer. So David, the floor is yours again.
Thank you. So, okay, 2 things. So I'll start this time with the bad side of remote sensing, because that touches really directly the technology and how it can be used to harm people. So, you know, there are wars like in many places. And then we have sometimes high resolution images. What do I mean by high resolution? High resolution, I'm talking here about centimeter of details in an image. Of course, this is not open source. However, sometimes we can get these data. But if our computer is hacked, or our server is hacked, or like by mistake, we give, you know, the images to a colleague or a stakeholder, but then that stakeholder sold the images to a country that, I don't know, is killing some people for one reason or for 1 million reasons, then this needs to be regulated. And I know there are lots of AI regulation in the world, but if these regulations are not combined with satellite images, then this is a big problem for everyone. Because today they are killing X people somewhere in the world. Tomorrow it will be you and us. And so we need to be careful about these images. So that's very important, for me, a very important message. Maybe second message, because that's something we learned, is like what we call the participatory modeling. So when we go to Africa, you know, usually we come, we have the codes, we have the data, and basically we mainly transfer the data. But then we learned that's something wrong we are doing. They don't need our data sometimes. They have more data than us. Maybe it's not open source, it's not accessible for us, but they have their own data. But what's more important is they have their own knowledge that can improve our models. And in order for them to improve also our knowledge and our models, we need to provide them with our models and our codes. And that's what we did. And guess what? And I can tell you, this has not happened in just one country, in many countries. In less than a week, those guys, after we did the training there on the codes, they managed to improve our models when we spent like maybe 2 years to create the model. In 1 week, they managed to improve it. And this is to tell you the enthusiasm they have, how smart they are, and you know, they really work hard, maybe much more than us. And for me, that's really impressive. And that's what we should do. That's how, you know, we transfer the knowledge, and the knowledge also comes back to us. So.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, just forgot to mention that this should be just a very short one sentence, like 1 point,
Very
and
short.
then we need also to try to ask to include more people in the conversation. So think of the questions in advance, and now let's continue with
2 sentences, right? UN values. I think it is depending very much. One common place. Technology can be used for the good and the evil as well. And what is, I think, a crucial factor that how the big users, the big inventors, those countries who are really developing the large models, whose power is really, or influence is really big in this sector, I think is crucial. And the bad news is that actually here the USA, the influence of the USA is really, really very, very important. They are very influential players in this. And I'm not very optimistic about the embracing these values by the USA. So that is a big problem, I think. 3 sentences.
Thank you. Yeah, so peace is an illusion. There is no peace. Yeah, you want peace, achieve ignorance. So technologies will create more and more ways to destroy peace, and less you know, better is for your heart. So one example, we can create new life that did not exist before in every 2 weeks. 2 weeks, how much it takes to create synthetic life today. Yes? No, it's your imagination. What will we do to animals, plants, us? Yeah? What we will become. So, no peace, but no less, you will be in peace.
I again wish to approach this from an African perspective, obviously, and connecting back to what you have said about channeling the local knowledge, basically, and I would add wisdoms in plural into all these processes, so that comes back, and therefore I think global knowledge production should be transformed, in general, yeah. But it is evident from an African perspective that an Afrocentric approach is needed, yeah. Not only expecting from any external actor, partner, let that be the People's Republic of China, United States of America, or Hungary, as a matter of fact, to acknowledge and adhere to this, but also to strengthen a real African agency. And here the concept of agency is important, right? Where basically this agency can choose the right and meaningful partnerships, okay? Which can be basically managed by such an assertive, confident, and capable African entity, right? And actually, just to conclude, a little bit of advertisement. This is a good new book about the geopolitics and geoeconomics of technology. I was asked to write the Africa chapter in it, so it's a brand new thing. Definitely, African agency, I think, is crucial for our understanding in the long run, in line with what you have just said. Thank you.
I have only one sentence which is going to come from the university perspective. They should work closely with all IT companies to produce the necessity of the government and to train the government from the best expertise at the university and the best students that they are ready for the market. Otherwise, we're not going to get that necessity of the training needs and the necessity of the application development and so on. The reality should work closely. Otherwise, there is no need.
I would like to make a marketing promotion for the afternoon panel. I saw Mr. Professor Vörösmarty Bogardi and son from the team, and we will bring another topic that we have not mentioned now, and that I just collected that electricity needs of AI is now 1.5% of global energy consumption, and it will be 3% by 2030. It equals the household consumption of Europe. And in the US it will be about 10%, in Ireland now it is 23%. So it's a huge impact we have to talk about. And then also answering the question after the marketing, is that for the UN, I think when we talk about transformative technologies, it always creates losses of jobs, that goes with crisis, that goes with fear, and then goes with the demand for strong leadership. And this is what we see in the world. And at UN, we also have to think of how to respond to that responsibly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think people go to war when they feel injustice. So they live in peace when they feel justice. And I think what we have to make sure that all these benefits of these transformative technologies and science that humanity created actually benefits all humans. If it's not the case, these transformative technologies will just increase instability and will lead to wars. So, and this is maybe the lesson we can learn from history. When the first industrial revolution, the steam machines came, they automatized a lot of things and made production extremely efficient. But all the profits of that went to a few. And many lost the jobs, and all this amazing benefit and wealth that was created by this technological revolution was not distributed in a justice way, and this cannot happen again. So this is something where United Nations can to play a great role to how to regulate this. And so for example, just one example is that, for example, I mentioned that now we can develop a new drug within months, not within years. That means that instead of spending billions of dollars, maybe a few million is enough. So it should translate into the reduction of the prices of the drugs. If it's not, it will just increase the revenue of pharma companies by 10-fold or 100-fold. But we have to lower the prices of the drugs in response. So it's a very concrete example. And the other one thing I just want to mention is that we should collectively prevent the use of these technologies as a weapon of, but I mean by the weapon by controlling access to this, especially in healthcare. So very concretely, I want to make sure that I want to work for it or fight for it that, for example, these medical technologies, transformative technologies cannot be monopolized, or sanctions against these cannot be used as a way to make war against the civil population.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for really these very insightful comments, and that this was really more than I could have wished for.